Hi, I'm Elaine, and my website is countryhomeandheart.net, and today I'm going to be making a black walnut pound cake. This is a very old recipe. I understand that it dates back about 100 years, so I'm sure it's had some modifications since then, but let's get started. Now I have 2 sticks of softened butter in my mixing bowl, and I'm just going to put that back on my stand mixer. I have a KitchenAid stand mixer, and it works really well for this, especially with this little paddle that scrapes the side of the bowl. Now, before I get started, I do want to talk to you about the black walnuts, because sometimes black walnuts can be hard to come by. And I got these at Sam's Club. They're seasonal. We usually get them in the fall of the year. So what I do is I buy several bags of these, and they keep in my freezer till I want to use them. So that's how I get my black walnuts, and I've had these froze for a little while. And also this recipe calls for black walnut flavoring, which is something also that's can be hard to find in the stores. I ordered this one online at Watkins.com, and that's where I got my black walnut flavoring. So the black walnuts and black walnut flavoring, I just wanted to let you know how to find those. So I have my 2 sticks of butter in my pan, or in my bowl, and I'm going to add to that 1/2 a cup of shortening. So we're just going to dump that right in there. Okay, put that, scrape that off on my beater a little bit. There we go. Okay, and I'm just going to get these started mixing. So this is going to be a little bit noisy, so bear with me just for a second. Okay, so I have that started. And now I'm going to add this is 3 cups of sugar. I know it seems like a lot, but this is going to be a very big cake. So we want to go ahead and just add the sugar in. And I'm going to beat this till we're light and fluffy. So we're going to turn the video off while I do this, because this can be very noisy. We'll be back with you in just a moment. Okay, you can see our shortening and our butter and our sugar is nice and fluffy and has been creamed well. So now at this point we're ready to add the eggs. We're going to add these eggs one at a time. So what I'm going to do is turn my mixer down on low, and we're going to add these eggs just one at a time. So here goes. First egg, I'm going to turn that up just a little bit. There we go. Okay, and I'm going to add the second egg. Okay. Okay, and we're going to turn that up a little bit, just mixing that egg in good. Okay, now I'm going to mix the third egg. Okay. Turn that up a little bit. Alright, and the fourth one. Oops, well, that happens. That wouldn't be the first time that I have ever done that. It won't hurt anything. Okay, so we're going to let that, beat that up good. Okay, let's raise this up. And I'm going to scrape down my bowl a little bit, make sure that I have everything. Okay. All right. Okay, move that right there. Now at this point we're going to add the flavorings. I'm going to add my black walnut flavoring. Okay, so we're going to add a teaspoon of that. And I'm going to add a teaspoon of my vanilla flavoring. And this is pure vanilla extract. I always have better luck with vanilla extract than I do with the artificial flavoring, so I always use the real stuff. And there goes my dryer buzzing. Sorry about that. It'll just have to buzz. I'll get it directly. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and set this up, and I'm going to beat this a few more minutes till it gets smooth, so we'll be back after it beats. Okay, we're back, and I have my eggs and my sugar and my shortening and everything, the butter, all beat up. Now we're going to add the flour alternately with the milk. So I have the milk out here. This is 3 cups of flour with 1 teaspoon of baking powder, not baking soda, baking powder. And that's been sifted in. Now the flour, we measure the flour first, or we sift the flour first and then measure. Because what happens, flour tends to pack down in the bag. And when the flour packs down in the bag, you can end up using maybe even as much as a half or 3/4 of a cup more flour than your recipe calls for, which is going to make your cakes very dry. So we always sift first and then measure. And then I've sifted in the 1 teaspoon of baking powder. So we're going to add this alternately with the beginning and ending with the flour mixture. And this is 1 cup of milk. And I'm going to list these recipe ingredients in the comments below, so you'll have the ingredients there if you want to try this recipe. Okay, so I have my flour and my baking powder mixture, and I'm going to start with that. I'm going to put maybe 1/3 of this in here. Okay, and I'm just going to take my rubber spatula and I'm going to gently mix this in. You don't want to beat it at this point, because if you beat it at this point, there's a good chance that you're going to overmix your batter, and you don't want to overmix it once you put the flour in it. It's okay, you can mix it pretty much as long as you want to before you put the flour in, but once that flour goes in, you can't keep mixing it, or you might overmix. Okay, so that's good. Now I'm going to add half of my milk. So, and this is just regular whole milk. You could use half and half if you wanted as well, but this is just regular whole milk. I'm going to add about half of it. We're going to stir that in. Just stir that in until it starts to get incorporated. I'm going to scrape my sides and bottom here while I'm doing this too. Okay, now I'm going to add about another 1/3 of my flour mixture. Okay, so let's just put this in. And I took just about 1/4 of a cup of this flour mixture out before I started mixing it, and mixed it in with my black walnuts, with my cup of black walnuts, and then just to keep them from settling to the bottom. They will sort of disperse throughout the cake more evenly by doing that. So I put that flour, about a 1/4 of a cup maybe of that flour mixture in with that before I started mixing. Okay, and I'm going to put the rest of my milk in. And we're almost there. Okay, and the last of my flour. Just dump that in. Okay, when I get all this incorporated really good, I'm going to set it back on the mixer, but for no more than 30 seconds or so, because again, I don't want to overmix this batter, but I want to make sure that it is thoroughly mixed. So when I get this done here, we're going to set it back on the mixer for just about 30 seconds. So, and it looks like we about got it. Okay, so scrape that off. All right, and I'm going to put my beater back up here. Okay, and set this down. Okay, and now I'm going to mix this on a very low speed for just about 30 seconds. Okay, and that ought to do it. Okay. All right. That looks pretty good. And the last thing I'm going to do is fold in the rest of my, fold in my nuts and the little bit of flour that I folded in with that. So as soon as I get this scraped off good. Oops. Okay. All right. Let's take this off. Let's just take this, I'm just going to dump that right in, and I'm going to fold these nuts into the batter. Just very gently. I don't want to overhandle this, so we're going to just very gently fold this in. Now this should make a very moist and very rich cake, and it's going to be a big cake, so there'll be plenty of this to go around. It does freeze very well, so if you just like, it's just me and my husband, so we don't eat a lot of this, so I will cut this into individual servings. I'll cut this up into individual servings and freeze it, and whenever somebody has a little sweet tooth and wants a piece of cake, why, it'll be there in the freezer. You just microwave it for about a minute or so, and it comes out just like you just baked it. All right. Okay, so I'm going to get my tube pan that I've already prepared. I've lined it with parchment paper, and we're going to put this batter into my tube pan. See, it doesn't look like you can see, so let me move this over. Okay. So I'm just gonna, I like to use, this is easier for me than trying to handle that big heavy bowl that doesn't have a handle on it. It's been known to slip out of my hands a few times, and we don't want that to happen again, so. Okay, we're just about there. On that side, whoopsie. Messes happen, you can't help it. I find that good cooks tend to make a mess. so if it makes a mess on you and you're not exactly as neat as you want to be, then that's okay. Alright, we're getting there. Alright, let's just clean that out of the spoon. Okay, have you seen it? Alright, now I'm going to clean this out of the bowl. Okay. Now, just going to smooth this out, and what I like to do is I like to kind of push it more to the edges and make a little, almost a well in the center, because cakes tend to crown as they bake. They make that little rounded place, and so if you smooth that out a little bit in the center, it won't be as bad to crown, and be a little easier to handle. All right, And it looks like we have it. Now I have preheated my oven to 325 degrees, and I'm going to bake this for about an hour and a half, but I'm going to start checking it. I'm going to start checking it in about an hour, and just to make sure that it's done. And because oven temperatures vary, and sometimes it can you can overbake if your oven is a little bit different. So I want to make sure that mine doesn't overbake. So okay, so we'll be back in about an hour. We'll be back when this is done, and I'll show and I can get it out of the pan. Be back in a while. Okay, we're back, and the cake is out of the oven and it's cooling. I'm going to let it cool just about 10 minutes or so in the pan, and then I'm going to take it out. So right now it's just sitting in the pan. So I'm making a glaze to go over it. This is going to be a buttercream glaze. Sometimes I make a caramel nut glaze to go over top of it too, but this time I think I'm just going to do a buttercream. So what I'm doing right now is I'm cooking these milk solids and getting those to come to the top, and I'm going to clarify this butter. So it'll take just a second here, and I'm stirring it constantly because I don't want it to scorch or burn. But yeah, you can see those bubbles coming up to the top, and what that and how this is starting to cook and starting to get clear. It'll take it a minute. I've got it on a little bit, about a medium-low heat right now. I didn't want to put it up on high because I sure didn't want this to burn, but you can see it's starting to clarify now. It's beginning to turn clear. All those solids are starting to come up. So it'll take it just a minute, and we'll get this going. Okay, and just stir this a little bit now. Okay, and here we go. We're just about there. I just want that to cook a little bit. What cooking this butter is going to do is give this a really good buttery taste when we get this done, and that's what I'm going for with this. So it'll have that nice buttery taste. Okay, so we just about got it. Okay. Yeah, that's looking really good now. So I'm going to go ahead and take this off of the heat and turn my burner off. And okay, and I'm going to add my milk. Maybe just, I have about 1/8 of a cup or so measured out. So I'm just going to measure out, just add a little more to that. I may add more or less depending on if I need it. Okay, and I'm going to put, this is 2 cups of confectioner sugar. I didn't sift it or anything, I just dumped it in there. Now I want this to be fairly thin, like a glaze, so I may have to add some more milk. Let me grab a spatula, that didn't all come out. Hold on just a second. Okay, get that out of my cup. Let's put it aside. Okay, and we're going to mix this, I'm going to mix this in with my whisk. Okay, and we're just going to whisk it, and you see what it's doing. It's coming together already. Okay, now I'm going to add about a teaspoon of vanilla to it, maybe half teaspoon or so of vanilla, maybe a teaspoon right in there. Add some vanilla to that. Okay, and then I'm also going to add about a tablespoon or so of corn syrup, because this is going to go on a warm cake, and what the corn syrup will do is keep this from crystallizing and having sugar crystals in it. It'll keep it nice and smooth. Okay, and you can see we have pretty well come together our glaze. So that looks pretty good. All right, so I'm going to move this off. Okay, I'm just going to let my way. All right, and I'm going to take the cake out of the pan, and when I get the cake out of the pan, we'll be back in just a minute, and I'll let you see me take the parchment paper off of it. Okay, I got the cake out of the pan, and I'm going to turn the camera down so you can see. Okay, now it still has the parchment paper on it, so I'm going to remove the parchment paper. And you can see how it's very moist and springy. Okay, and I'm going to pull this one off of the top. Very carefully remove that. Okay, and there we are. Now what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to put a little bit of a glaze, the glaze that we made a minute ago. I'm going to put the glaze on this. I think it needs just a little bit more water, or a little bit more milk, so I'm going to add just a little bit more milk to that. Okay, and I have that done. Okay. As soon as I get this mixed good and incorporated, we're going to put this glaze on the cake. Here. Okay, and okay, so now what I'm going to do is just pour this over the top. And we're going to let it run down the sides. Okay, I'll push that down over the sides a little bit. Okay. A little bit more right there. It doesn't. Okay, and there we have our black walnut pound cake. Now what I'm going to do at this point, because I want this to finish cooling, I'm going to put an airtight lid over this cake. And if you don't have when you're cooling the cake, before you put a glaze on it, if you don't have an airtight container, you can wrap the cake in saran wrap while it's cooling, and what that's going to do is help hold all that moisture in. Now we'll taste this, but I want to when it cools down a little bit more. So when this cools, we'll be back, and I'm going to get a piece for me and my husband. Be back with you shortly. Bye bye now. Okay, we're back, and I have cut this cake, and I want y'all to see how moist and springy that cake is. It's going to be really good. So I'm going to taste of it. I'm going to have put the camera up on me here. And I'm going to taste of it and let you know how it is. So okay. It's really good, y'all. It tastes like black walnuts, and it's very moist, and it's going to be even more moist because I don't know if you can see this liquid that's building up in the lid here, but this liquid is going to seep down into the cake as it cools. This cake's still pretty hot, and it's going to save even more moisture, and it's going to be even more moist. So, but I did want you to see this cake. I cut a piece for my husband and cut one for me too, and we're going to enjoy a piece of this. So bye bye, we'll see y'all next time.